Imwe, and welcome to Beyond, episode 569. My name is Jonathan Dornbush. I am your host for this week's episode of Beyond, our weekly PlayStation show here at IGN. I am joined by Max Scoville.
Nice.
And Brian Altano.
Nice.
And what is actually nice is we have quite the show for you this week. We're going to be talking about what we think may be the best PS4 exclusive of this year as the year starts to wind down. We're also going to talk about how crazy the beginning of next year is for PS4. We're also going to take a look at some Game Awards rumors, some things we know aren't going to be there, and talk about that, especially because probably when you're listening to this, the Game Awards are in like a few hours, so we don't want to spend too long on that. But we'll also jump into quite a few other things happening in the world of PlayStation. But the first thing that I want to talk to you both about today.
Does it rhyme with dice? I mean, nice?
Mice?
Is it dice?
Not yet. No, the dice are here, but we'll get to them in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, this is like Chekhov's dice is basically what I'm looking for here.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to talk this week about what we think may be sort of PS4 game of the year, the best PS4 exclusive. I think this year pretty easily has been one of the best years for the PS4, especially when it comes to exclusives for the system. And a lot of, obviously, there will be Game of the Year discussion. There will be a PS4 Game of the Year, Best PS4 Game Award as part of IGN's awards later this year, end of year awards. So I don't want to go into necessarily what those games will be because we'll talk about them once those nominees are out. But I want to talk to you guys first about the crazy year that has been for PS4 and then what you guys feel is the best exclusive.
Yeah, so this has been an excellent year for PlayStation 4 exclusives. And like you said, you know, you'll see awards given out at the Game Awards for Best Game of the Year, Best PS4 Game of the Year. But yeah, we thought it'd be cool to have a very hyper-focused conversation about specifically exclusives because people love that word because it's weaponry in the console wars. It's ammunition. So I'm going to just throw the gauntlet down or the axe and say it's God of War.
It's God of War.
Is it?
It's God of War.
I thought you were going to say
Even for you,
Spider-Man.
Max? Yeah.
No, okay, here's the thing.
Yeah.
God of War, I think is quite arguably the best game of the year. Like that's the thing is I love this game. I had a wonderful time with it. I think Spider-Man made me a lot happier.
Okay.
But I finished it. I was like, that was a great time. God of War was still really, 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 really good.
Yeah. Well, God, this is
Spider-Man's also really good though.
This has been really difficult for me to quantify.
So these two definitely have been, I think, probably some of the best PS4 exclusives just of the whole lifetime. Mm-hmm. But also, there was a lot of talk earlier this year about God of War and sort of its place in the pantheon of games in general.
Right.
And then I think also a lot of discussion about Spider-Man in terms of how it has once again revitalized like comic book games also and is just like a killer reintroduction of Insomniac games to everyone too. And so my curious point, Max, I want to know, like you're saying you had more fun with Spider-Man.
Yeah, so here's the key difference here is this version of God of War made me like Kratos as a character, whereas Spider-Man is a character I've always liked, and that was a game that did him justice.
Okay.
That's a really good way of putting it.
And I think going into it, like this God of War was showing that this is a franchise that can grow up, whereas Spider-Man was like, hey, maybe this is a franchise that deserves like this level of treatment from a video game, which we haven't gotten that many of.
I think both of these games did a good job of kind of course correcting the path of the last few games we're going down. And I know some of you really love the last few God of Wars and you really love the last few Spider-Man games, but to me, those were like solid entries. With on the Spider-Man side, borderline mediocre, occasionally just straight up not good. This, on the other hand, completely night and day. And I will agree that it's more fun, but I don't know if that's necessarily the only qualifier. Like, I'll put it this way. If that had the most weight to it of all the qualifiers when discussing your favorite games, then yes, fun is number one, right? And the Game Pro used to, like, review things with faces and they'd be like, fun factor and, like, music.
Fun is subjective, though.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
But I would say that the moment-to-moment, like, fun of playing Spider-Man is goddamn unmatched on PlayStation or pretty much any console this year. I think that there was just like there was nothing else like it. You know, like it was a fantastic open world game that just felt amazing the second you got into it. It felt really good the first few seconds and then it started to click. And there was nothing like it. And God of War has that, right? Like it has that feeling when you're throwing the axe and stuff like that. But I think I'm more in God of War for the world and the story. Whereas to me, I felt the gameplay in Spider-Man was more fun, not necessarily better, because God of War's gameplay, like in specific moments, was also incredible. So this is very difficult. This is It's a lot harder than just being like one or the other.
Yeah, well, my question to get a little bit more general about it for both of you is what to you means best? Because you were talking about it a little bit there. Like best can mean what you think has the best aspects all working together, or just like the experience you remember the most fun you had, the best graphically and visually. Like what for the two of you when we're talking about not just right here on the show, but in general when you're, voting for Game of the Year or looking at what's at the Game Awards, what to you means best?
I think you qualified a lot of it right there. Part of it for me too, and this is where it gets tricky because I break my own rule a lot. Part of it for me is also how, like, can I recommend this to somebody else? Like God of War is something I really loved because it's a fantastic game. You guys know that by now. But it's also like it had, and Jonathan, you and I talked about this a bit, like it had some deep personal connections to us about like loss of a family member. And, for me, parenting, like was like, I think two sort of things that happened at the same time. But I would recommend God of War to people because it is, even if you haven't dealt with any of that, which I hope you haven't, because some of it's good. But I would recommend it to you because I think it's a fantastic video game with an excellent story, great visuals, great music, great pacing. It's really fun moment to moment. If you want to dig into it and veer off the beaten path, there's a lot to do there. If you want to crank up the hardest difficulty and play it like Bloodborne, you can do that too. That said, Spider-Man has a lot of that as well, right? But I ultimately go with God of War because I think that it is more memorable. I think it's the best version of that story that's ever been told. I think for Spider-Man, it's a really, really great way of telling a new Spider-Man story, But there have been countless Spider-Man stories told. So I don't know. I don't think that's like, I wouldn't say it's like the best Spider-Man story ever told. This is the best Kratos story ever told.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there's a lot more Spider-Man source material to pull from, which can be enough to sort of tangle it up and be something to get caught up in.
See what you
the fact
did there?
that it was a regular web of lore. But no, like Spider-Man, you've got a lot of stuff to pull from, and it's proven itself. It is a storytelling medium first, like comic books, movies, whatever, TV shows. That's already been sort of established. Whereas video games and storytelling have always been like a little bit at odds. It's an interactive medium, therefore it's not necessarily the most conducive to being like, here is someone telling the player a story when the player is like, I want to run over here and fight this thing. God of War managed to strike a really good balance between the moment-to-moment gameplay and like the core sort of video gamey playable, ludological experience, whereas it still had like a really potent narrative, and the fact that it managed to strike a balance between like Kratos as a character who has this, his background is like like quick time events for having sex with like Medusa or whatever.
Yep.
Like it's his thing is he stabs the elephant in the head with his angry sword. It's like he's very much kind of a one note character, and they were like, hey, maybe there are more notes there. Maybe there's like more to do with that. Whereas like we've seen Spider-Man evolve as a character over the course of several decades, from like the original kind of corny, the pages of old comic books and Spider-Man and his amazing friends to being like, oh, maybe these Andrew Garfield movies are a little bit too dark, So for Kratos, who's been around arguably a lot less time, but is at home in this medium, I think that was sort of the most well-rounded experience overall.
Right. They both do a really good job of their open worlds, sort of having the kind of pacing that doesn't feel so deliberately urgent that you have to beeline to the ending. Both of those things have. And Spider-Man picks up by the end where it's sort of like, you got to do this now because like the city's falling apart.
Yeah.
But God of War is kind of like you have to deliver something and you can take your time doing that, and it gives you the opportunity to sort of take your time and explore a little bit.
I mean, also they built the world of God of War from the ground up, whereas Spider-Man is like a creative interpretation of New York City.
Yeah.
There's Manhattan exists in real life, so there's sort of there's more source material to work from. Whereas God of War was like, I mean, historically is set in Greece, and now they were like, let's move things to Midgard or whatever.
Where do you land on this, Jonathan?
I mean, for me, I think it's weird to compare the two of them because it was something I very consciously tried to not do in my review of Spider-Man after reviewing God of War. But there are so many parallels between the two of them, so it almost feels like saying one does one better means the other doesn't do it as well. But I come down on the side of God of War. I think like that experience still stays with me in a way that Spider-Man hasn't stayed with me. And I do agree. I think like the minute to minute and the consistency of those minutes is more fun in Spider-Man, but I think every part of God of War feels intentioned and works together to create a better whole. And I think they all matter in a way that some of Spider-Man doesn't matter. Like, I think at the end of the day, half of the side things you can do in Spider-Man are either superfluous, not that fun, or just beat you over the head with how many times you need to complete them. Whereas, like,
there was those fish in the bay, and there's choking, and you have to get the fart clouds.
You got to get the farts.
The fart
Swing
cloud.
around and get
Yeah.
those
the farts.
Get those Osborne farts out of the sky.
take photos of the farts. Yeah.
Ruining the real estate value over in West Village or whatever.
Whereas all of the side stuff in God of War enhanced my care about that world. Like, it made me interested in either a new aspect of it or helped me understand an aspect of the world that I only previously had like a surface level understanding of.
I think also the fact that God of War had Atreus there to kind of like comment on what was happening.
Yes.
And it managed to like still have a lot of very core video gamey mechanics. Like you're the operative thing is you're killing stuff with an axe and opening treasure chests. Like that is what you do in God of War. Yeah. But for that to be like so grounded and reined in by having like a character there who felt like fleshed out, being like, oh, we're going over here to do that? Okay, cool. Let's check this out.
Yeah,
you know, it was like,
it's a co-op game you can play entirely by yourself, which is amazing.
Yes.
You know, the fact that you never have to think about escort missions or fetch quests, or the fact that you get in the boat and so does Atreus, and you never like, oh, he's stuck somewhere, or like he's just always there. It's second nature, and it's this really beautiful experience that you watch their dynamic, their relationship grow. And I totally agree with you with the side quests in God of War. Some other ones, one specifically, I don't want to call it out, but it's really stuck with me. It's Atreus has this idea of something he can do to bring back his mom, and it just goes in this direction.
Yeah.
And where it ends, you're sort of like, oh my God, I love that I could have missed this. Whereas in Spider-Man, the Tombstone thing was really cool. That was like a whole side mission that I did, and I think a lot of people skipped it. And it's there, and it's worth doing. But most of the other side missions just sort of felt like mini games from like a last gen.
I mean, I would argue that Spider-Man is a true open world, whereas God of War is like open world-ish. Like the way it's structured feels almost more like a Metroidvania or something.
Yeah. I guess one of my biggest problems with with Spider-Man is that it sees the brilliance of what it can be at certain points, but doesn't always succeed on it. With like the Tombstone mission, I think is a good template for what they should have done throughout the game.
Yeah.
That ties Spider-Man lore into the actual gameplay and into the actual story missions that you have. Whereas a lot of the other side stuff, the backpacks are cool, but it implies all those sorts of missions already happened.
Yeah.
And while I like that sense of history, it at the same time robs you of the ability to do those things in the world.
It's also, God of War was very deliberate in its pacing, whereas I feel like Spider-Man had like pipe puzzles. And if your game has a button to skip the puzzles in your game, they probably shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
You know? Like, or maybe put them on a terminal as like something that people can mess around with if they feel like it, but to put it as deliberately part of the way the story is told in that game, and then still giving you the option to just skip them entirely, shows that they're sort of not important to begin with.
I mean, there was a lot of stuff that Spider-Man did that was like not groundbreaking, but just incredibly competent.
Yes.
And I think that should be celebrated because it's obviously juggling a lot of stuff, sometimes goons. But with God of War, it felt like it sort of took this existing franchise and sort of looked around at the landscape of recent video games and was like, okay, what are some things that have worked really well, and how do we incorporate these? I felt like it had the sort of the dynamic of Joel and Ellie from The Last of Us, and the sort of the simplicity of Journey, of being like, oh, there's a mountain, we're going there for a reason, let's get there. And it was like, it made them gel in a way that it didn't feel like kind of, shoehorned in there.
Yes.
Whereas Spider-Man was kind of like, hey, what are let's do Far Cry Outposts, let's do some Assassin's Creed stuff, let's have some Arkham stuff in there. And it was like, it was all very, it was good. It didn't feel like it was really, pushing any boundaries.
Right.
It was just, it did a really good job within those boundaries.
They both could have used more boss fights. Just throwing that
Never enough boss fights for you. Yeah.
I mean, like God of War, looking back, had a bunch of great ones, but it also had a bunch of the same ones over and over. So, but yeah, God, it was a good year. Also, shout out to Astrobot.
Astrobot is great. Yeah.
There's a bunch of other PS
Tetris
exclusives. Yep.
Yakuza Kiwami 2, Shadow of the Colossus, Ni no Kuni, Revenant Kingdom. Detroit.
Yep.
I had a really weird dream last night because I knew we were going to be talking about this, and I dreamed that there was like late game content for God of War that involved the grandpa from the Munsters. And I was like, yeah, God of War's pretty good, but it's very serious. Then I played that. I was like, the grandpa from the Munsters is here. Game of the year, hands down. That's it. Woke up, I was like, hell is wrong with me?
That
That's
guy
how you
used to have
decide
a
game of the year.
He used to have a restaurant in New York City, by the way. I've been there. I met him when I was a kid.
Is the restaurant in Spider-Man?
Probably. There's a bunch of like very phony sounding Italian restaurant names in Spider-Man.
Was it a Munsters theme restaurant?
Vaguely. Like there wasn't like a monster under the stairs or anything, but
All Munster cheese.
our audience loves the monsters.
Oh,
by the
yeah,
way.
yeah, that's-
When are the Munsters going to get
The
the
PS4
video game
exclusive?
treatment that they deserve?
We'll see what Naughty Dog does after The Last of Us Part 2. Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to say this has been one of the best years for the PS4 since its launch when it comes to exclusives. And these two games, regardless of which is better, they're both some of the best games just in general of this year.
But it is the end of the year and we must make
Hard choices.
games fight other games.
Yes.
And movies fight other movies.
That's how
It's
it
just
works.
what we do. I don't know why we do it, but we do it. Yeah. And so do you. It's your fault.
Of course, if you've played what are, in our opinion, the best PS4 exclusives of the year already, there are some free games you can play this month. I wanted to call out a couple of them for the free PlayStation Plus games you can download through January 1st, I believe is the last day they'll be available. One of the big ones for PS4 is Soma.
Yes.
Have you two played Soma?
No, I've been meaning to. And this is exactly what PlayStation Plus, I think, is for, right? It's games that I slept on that are now right there at the click of a button, and they're on my PS4 within a little while, and I'm playing them. And it's the kind of thing I probably wouldn't have dug back in like a sale or, you know, at a used game store and pulled this out. But putting it front and center in this lineup ensures that I will absolutely check it out. Max, what about you? You love doing spooky horror games and pooping the pants.
No, I really hate pooping my pants, and I don't even like going in the ocean normally, let alone a haunted house in the ocean, which is kind of what this is. Isn't there like a baby mode for this though?
I think they've inserted sort of like an easy mode because there are. So I've played Soma and I really enjoyed the experience. It really was affecting. There are moments where it becomes very gamey, and it's like, make sure you sneak past the presence that is in that room to get the key to go to the other room. And I think they've essentially put in a mode that lets you kind of strip away some of the more puzzly things so you can just experience the world.
So like less pushback.
Yeah. And Soma, the only parts that I didn't like of Soma were where it pushed back too much because it does such a great sense of putting you in the space and making you feel sort of trapped by all of it. You're underwater, you're in this enclosed space. It does a great job of that. And so when the game is pushing back against you, you get sucked out of that.
It always threw me off because we work in Soma. Like it's the neighborhood south of Market area or whatever the hell it is. And it's like sunny and beautiful and it's not really,
in Soma.
It's also the Brave New World drug, but also this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I remember being oddly disappointed for this because prior to it coming out, they had these incredible live action practical effect commercials that they put out.
Oh, right.
And following Amnesia, which I can't bring myself to play because it just looks goddamn nightmarish. I was like, oh, this is going to be really good. And then it was like, it's under the ocean. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. It's kind of, I don't know. I just, maybe I'll check it out. It's free after all. So, you know.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it, especially if you like anything like if you've played their Amnesia games before it. I think this is well worth playing. Also this month is Iconoclasts, which is on Vita and cross-buy with PS4.
Yes, this game's awesome. Have you guys played it?
A little bit of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. I played a bunch on Switch. I believe it's made by an incredibly small team, potentially entirely one person. I will have to double check on that. But yeah, I really like this game. Action platformer, very retro, old school 16-bit, which are a dime a dozen, admittedly. But it's got like the gun mechanics of something like Gunstar Heroes. So it feels good, or maybe even Cave Story. Where like all the weapons just feel awesome and combat's really cool, traversal's really cool. The environments are just super unique and very colorful and bright. Yeah, please grab this game, give it a shot. It's a nice little sort of palate cleanser after something like Soma.
Yeah.
And of course, if you don't have time to play it, you can always just stash it in your library and, you know,
Yes, and keep
dig into it later.
Yeah, Onrush is also free for PS4 this month, and that was a vehicular combat game that I think came out in June.
Who made this?
Let me look up
Who did this?
Who are they?
No, I think we talked about this briefly, and I never
Codemasters.
Codemasters. Okay, so it's
Yes.
a bunch of like.
This is such a Max Scoville-ass game.
It's weird that that's true, but it is.
Yeah. No, you love breaking stuff with the trucks.
I'm such a goddamn idiot. I love MotorStorm.
You talk about MotorStorm like almost as much as you talk about Yakuza.
Which is weird because they don't make like 2 MotorStorm games a year. They kind of
And then remake
one like 7
Exactly.
years ago that I played a bunch. But no, like I love like stupid arcade racers, especially when you just drive into crap. Because I'm very bad at driving, so those games where it's like time for precision turns. I'm like, get out of here. Let me hit the guys with my truck.
I never put that together. You love just going all off road because you can't be contained
Also,
by the
like,
lines.
I don't
There we
understand
go.
why you would make a game that's like not supposed to be a realistic driving game that doesn't have like super crazy boost, because that's fun.
Super
When
crazy
fire
boost is
shoots
the
out of the
best.
car and it goes very fast. I like it.
Yeah, Onrush came out earlier this year. I think it was received well, but didn't sell super well. And so this may give it a good second life. I think especially we've seen such successes with stuff like Rocket League on PS Plus that it only makes sense to have these types of games on here. Also, this month is Papers, Please for Vita.
Oh, right.
That's coming out. So
Is
if
that
you-
cross-buy?
No, it is not. At least according to the PS blog. It may have
And
surprised
there's
been.
the guy who made that also just has a new one, which is like The Secret of the Obra Dinn or something.
Yeah, Secret or Return of the
Which
Obra Dinn or
is
something
a
like that.
PC Mac game,
Yes.
which is getting an incredible buzz.
Yeah.
can
Yeah, if
check
you want to
out.
see some gameplay of Papers, Please, just put on the news.
If you also put on the news starting Thursday night, you'll hear about the award winners from the Game Awards, which
That's
gives
right.
awards to games.
Thank you for saving that.
Of
Yeah,
course,
Rachel
anytime.
Maddow is going to be like, Death Stranding finally has a release date, and we are... No, go ahead.
So the Game Awards are this Thursday, December 6th. This episode comes out Wednesday, December 5th. And then on YouTube and podcast services, December 6th. A couple hours beforehand. So I don't want to spend too much time because chances are any predictions we make will probably not come true 3 hours later.
Right.
But nonetheless, there's been a lot of news about what is and isn't going to be there. So I thought we could talk a little bit about that and both what you're excited to see and also what you're disappointed won't be there.
Yeah, totally.
So right off the bat, we know that Patrice Désilets' Ancestors, the Humankind Odyssey or whatever the subtitle is going to be there for it. And there's going to be a gameplay stream.
When was this game announced?
Ooh, a while back.
Was this E3?
It's been... No, it was one of those odd, like, off... I want to say maybe it was PSX. It's one of those... It could have been Paris Games Week. It's one of those games that was like... It wasn't an E3. It wasn't a Gamescom thing. It was kind of like almost off-season.
Because they released some like sort of key art, concept render,
Yeah.
you know, whatever it is
Now,
this week.
This
And-
is being published by Take-Two's sort of indie arm,
Yes.
which I'm very curious about. I don't know if they've put anything out yet.
No,
but
I don't think they have.
If it's like Take-Two's, Rockstar and NBA 2K money, then that's like, and they're willing to funnel some into like Patrice Désilets making indie monkey games. Like that's kind of cool.
Is this like an open world sort of like early man game? Like
We don't really know much about it.
Right.
I mean,
Well, they did like a presentation. I was looking at the entire sort of press release thing is up there, and this might completely be blown out of the water once they show it off at Game Awards. But I believe it's kind of doing this similar sort of social survival online shared world type of thing that we sort of have seen with like Ark and Conan Exiles, but I feel like it's going to be a little bit weirder.
Interesting.
I think that there's going to be some emphasis on like cooperation, but without like clear sort of infrastructure. And I could be reading into it too much, but it seems like they're trying to get a little bit stranger than just your
something
typical survival game.
Journey handled really well was sort of the accidental co-op stuff.
yeah.
I mean, if it's like a game where you have to like build a fire with another chimpanzee or something, but you don't have like clear emotes, you just make like weird gestures. And like,
Patrice was sort of integral to the foundation of the Assassin's Creed
Creed, yeah.
right?
And obviously that started with a clear interest in putting a twist on history in some way, but also, but getting weird with it a little bit more.
So you'll probably be able to climb some stuff.
climbing
I would
would
imagine,
definitely
yeah.
be good on this.
Especially
That's for sure.
there are apes in the game and there are trees in the game, so at least presumably an ape will climb a tree.
Right. I got this
Have on the game.
or some towers or whatever.
Yeah.
I got this confused for a
Collect
second
flags.
with the game we haven't heard a lot about from what's his name who created Rayman?
Yeah, I get that.
Oh, Michel Ancel.
Yeah,
with
Michel Ancel.
Wild.
Another
Wild.
sort of
Wild has been a total mystery for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't seen that game in like over a year.
I think it's been almost 2. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, maybe we'll see some from that, but I can see why you'd get those guys mixed up. Yeah, I'm excited to play a game that's like realistic, but you don't play as a human being.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we get a lot of cartoon animal platformers, and we get a lot of like you're a guy with a beard games, but like to get like maybe in the middle, like let me be a chimpanzee.
Yeah, we live as people.
Yeah.
What's it like to live as a chimpanzee? Yeah.
Yeah, video games are about escapism, and I want to be more of a monkey than the one I look.
I need
like
that
every
ape
morning.
escape.
It's being revived. You heard it here first. No, though, speaking of revivals and things, obviously, these dice are on this desk for a reason. So I got sent these in the mail today.
Yeah, if you're listening to the show, these are like 7-inch tall, bright orange, fuzzy dice.
Yes.
That specifically don't.
That's what they say. Oh,
They're very dusty.
oh, sorry. They're really
They're very dusty. But they are specifically missing numbers on a bunch of the sides.
Yeah, so one of the die only has 6 dots on it, just on one side. Then the other die has all of its dots, which total 21 dots. in general.
Okay.
And along with them came a card that said like an award or something is sliding into the Game Awards on December 6th.
So
Some sort of announcement. And a few other people have gotten these online, and most of the speculation that comes from it is the idea that a Crash Team Racing remake or remaster will be revealed.
What's the 21 mean?
I mean, some people, our freelancer Colin Stevens, who wrote up these dice for us, he speculated that it is a release date of some kind.
So 6/21
would be, is his assumption.
Oh wow! So like
Yeah.
a week after E3 next year.
Yeah, which
Damn.
the Insane trilogy released in June 2 years ago, so it would make
Oh.
sense.
That would make sense.
Yeah, it's not out of the question that they would release that soon to E3. And it's also, CTR was the thing that everyone wanted as part of the Crash trilogy. Like, everyone was like, that's great. Can we also get CTR with this? And then when they were announcing it for other platforms, everyone was like, maybe they'll also package in this. But
Yeah.
it never came to be.
Well, it's a great idea. People have a ton of nostalgia for this franchise. Also, it's really weird that we are back in the 90s again, and Nintendo has a dominant mascot-driven kart racing game that is selling tens of millions of copies, and no one is really biting at their heels making their own versions. Whereas back then, that's what we saw, right?
Yeah.
Those were tremendously popular franchises, and no one's really competing anymore. But I would love to see that awful Bandicoot and his wretched friends in 4K HDR.
Yeah.
On my PS4 Pro.
Also, it'd be cool if Activision threw some other like stuff. Like if they threw Spyro in there, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That's what's really awesome about kart games is that it's an opportunity to get a little Smash Brothers.
I think they should put Tony Hawk in there.
Yeah, he's not doing
Port him in
anything.
there.
Yeah.
Tony Hawk.
Everyone from the PS1 days.
What am I doing here?
Wait, is
All
he in a
right, let's-
car?
No, he's on a skateboard. You
Oh,
It's a skateboard car.
Yeah, he's
funny-
a pro skater.
Oh, I don't know. They put Sonic in a car and he's got legs.
Speaking of Tony Hawk, also accidentally the iPhone, like iOS and Google Play stores revealed there's a new mobile Tony Hawk game
Oh,
coming.
what?
cool.
Yeah, that was just accidentally listed also. So the 90s are
Tony
back
Hawk
in
games
every
always
way.
get surprised in the weirdest
Yeah,
ways.
I feel bad for them. At least it wasn't like a chef at a party this time.
Catering a half pipe.
Yeah. So we'll find out if the Crash Team Racing revival is true. If it is, I will be very happy, and it would make sense for Activision to keep the revival
Can
train
I
going.
ask you something real
Yeah.
quick? Why would they do this? The show's in 2 days.
The dice?
Yeah.
I don't. They sent me an egg like a week before they announced Spyro.
Yeah, okay.
If
So
it's
there's
them
a
again,
pattern.
like they just this would very much be in line with what they did for Spyro.
Good
earlier
answer.
this year.
I think also these are the things that you put underneath furniture to keep them
we've
from
actually-
scuffing
Are they
your
really?
floor.
I've been talking about getting some.
Oh, no.
Because they're.
Oh, yeah.
Put them right under here.
Yeah, perfect.
The mic stands are always scratching the table.
Now they're only 20.
Also,
on the die.
wait a
I've
minute.
changed the release date.
The really, it's a month earlier now.
So we've heard a few other rumors about things, and I do want to get to rumors in a second. But first, we've also heard that there will not be Last of Us Part 2. Naughty Dog confirmed right before we were
Wait.
recording that Last of Us Part 2 will not be showing.
Will not be at the show. You said there won't be a Last of Us.
There won't be. Oh God, no.
You
Yeah,
almost
that's not.
accidentally
Nope.
canceled that
Sorry.
game.
Yeah. Sorry, Neil. No, Last of Us Part 2 is still happening, but it won't be present at the Game Awards, which is not surprising because if they had Last of Us Part 2, they would have done a PSX.
So
I think.
here's what's weird about that. The Last of Us Part 2 was officially revealed 2 years ago this week at a PSX.
Yeah.
This year at E3, gameplay was shown for the first time in that theater, that moving target theater that Sony built.
Yeah.
That I think tired them out so much that they're taking next year off. That video has 10.5 million views on YouTube, but we don't have a PSX this year. And there is no PlayStation conference next year. So I don't know. Yeah, at E3.
I think that Sony's taking a cue from Rockstar and realizing that the more you show over the kind of long build up to a game, I'd say the more that it damages expectations or whatever.
Yeah.
They kind of shut up after God of War and Spider-Man, and then they were like, hey, they're coming out. And I think that's what made them pack such a punch, is that it wasn't something that we gotten tired of seeing.
Yeah,
Totally.
God of War was announced the release date, I think, in a blog post 2.5, 3 months before the game actually came out.
Yeah.
So I think they are very much taking the let's be quiet until we have things to say approach. And I do think they'll have some sort of presence at PSX because in addition to Last of Us and Death Stranding, which we'll get to in a second, they obviously have plenty of other games they could talk about. And so I think they will have some presence. But
Right.
these big marquee games, they would have probably had PSX otherwise.
Yeah.
But speaking of some of these big games, there was sort of like a Death Stranding accidental Walmart Canada leak again.
To be fair, Walmart Canada is your number one place for early release dates.
They got things real right earlier.
Yeah, I
this
think
year.
how many they released they leaked 5 things from E3 this year.
I think almost everything but Borderlands 3 has been confirmed. Yeah, it was like Division 2, Lego DC Supervillains and like 2 other games.
They dropped
were on
like
there.
every pre-order. It was like Rage 2. I mean, like
Rage
like,
2 was on
like
there,
Todd
yeah.
Howard like made like a crack about them on like the Bethesda stage.
They reactivated the Rage Twitter account like 2 days after, and their initial push was making fun of the Walmart leak as part of their promotion.
So Walmart Canada saying June 19th for Death Stranding, which
Wait a minute.
I also saw a June 30th.
When did we
listing
just
from them?
What's the Crash Team Racing release date? June 21st.
If that's what the dice mean.
That's a weekend.
Oh yeah,
That is a weekend right there.
2 of the most similar games you can play at any one time. No, I also saw one person had the version of the listing that said June 30th, which would make more sense to me in the sense that is the end of a quarter.
Right.
And people, sites like that put placeholder things on
Yes.
it. Like we get news tips from people being like, Amazon has Kingdom Hearts before they had a release date for December 31st.
games don't come out on New
2018.
Year's Eve. That's cruel to PR people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
fooled
it's
everybody.
it's very possible, especially with some of the posts being June 30th, that this was just a placeholder thing. But Walmart Canada has gotten plenty right in the past.
Yeah, we see that a lot with fiscal year ending in March, where people will be like March 1st or March 31st, whatever it is like the release date for Bloodborne 2, and you're like, that's not real, that's not a real date, and stop teasing me.
It's not how dates work. But yeah, another big rumor that has popped up recently this week, and I know our producer Barrett Courtney is quite excited, is that WB Montreal, who has essentially been quiet since Arkham Origins, reportedly is rumored to be working on what may be a Batman Court of Owls adaptation. And Barrett is walking into the studio right now because he has some thoughts about Batman Court of Owls.
Hi, I just want to say that Batman Court of Owls, written by Scott Snyder and a couple of the other writers at DC, is one of the best Batman stories of all time. It gives off a very creepy vibe that I think would work in the potential shared universe of the Batman Arkham games. There are some really cool moments in there, and since I'm here now, I'm going to put this in post of really cool shots and frames from that series. And
Don't spoil anything though.
I won't spoil anything, but there's some really cool story moments, some really cool character moments for Batman, and just the world of Gotham itself. So I just want to say that would be awesome. And if that's actually announced, if you're watching this the day of tonight, you know that I will be crying somewhere with joy.
It's a very good run, and it would also adapt to a video game very well for curious reasons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I also want to point out that we did get that leaked footage of that Harry Potter looking game.
Oh, yeah.
There's all sorts of owl-related shit in the Harry Potter universe.
Yeah.
The Wizarding World.
What if they do a crossover between Harry Potter and Batman? Harry Potter
Batman
and the
would
quarter.
kick Harry Potter's ass.
All right, I'm going to go back to the
All right.
back room.
Great seeing you, Barrett.
So a lot of these rumors came from the fact that someone from WB Games Montreal put up a photo with the words like redacted best dev team and a shirt that had an owl like logo on it, which looks suspiciously like the Court of Owls logo. But again, like Max, you were saying, obviously we saw this leaked Harry Potter footage earlier this year. They could also be working on the Harry Potter game. That said, they do have history with Batman, and while Arkham Origins, I think, failed on sort of a structural level in the open world, I do think it has some really great story elements to it.
Yep.
That's one of those ones that people came around on too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are like, hey, this was buggy at launch. They patched it, but like it's got some cool stuff in there. So I don't know. I think it had a hard act to follow with Arkham City. So.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It was definitely coming off the heels of that, which wasn't great for it. But
It sucks. I would really like to see them do something more intimate like Arkham Asylum. I don't think they ever will again. The train's left the station. They'll go open world forever because it's awesome to fly around Gotham City as Batman. But it's really cool to solve puzzles in a small, intimate Metroidvania taking place in an insane asylum.
I would like to go to Hogwarts. That's sort of like an insane asylum when you really get into it. The staircases move.
a 7-year
got-
asylum,
Ghost women in the bathrooms is terrifying.
they're just crying all the time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I expect we'll see something from WB at the show. They have shown Batman Arkham as a franchise there a lot in the Game Awards in the past, so I wouldn't be shocked. We know we will not be getting Rocksteady. Sefton Hill from Rocksteady came out and said, we are not planning on showing anything there, and he also clarified, we're not working on a Superman game.
Yes.
I think that still leaves the door open for a DC game that Superman could be a part of. I'm not going to rule that out, but I don't think...
Superside Squad?
Super Sad Squad.
I think that would be really funny if like they go like, what? We said it wasn't a Superman game. We didn't say it wasn't a Superman and Batman game.
Super Friends game.
Mm-hmm.
Finest.
I'd be fine with that. But yeah, we're obviously waiting to hear what they're working on, but we won't hear it at the Game Awards. And then also Cyberpunk confirmed, CD Projekt Red said they will not be showing at the Game Awards either. So still a lot of mysteries of what could be shown, but at least we have some idea. It's interesting that we don't know we know what won't be shown. And I know, Brian, you and Andrew Goldfarb talked about this, so people can watch that on the site.
Yeah,
too.
go check out that video.
Yeah, it'll be curious, though. I'm excited to see what gets announced. This has been growing as an announcement show, even though it is called the Game Awards. It continues to grow as a place for big reveals.
Yeah, one of the things that Andrew Goldfarb and I talked about in the conversation is that there has been sort of this growing trend of, I guess, not necessarily deflating hype, but sort of like measuring it and cutting it off and tapering it a little bit, and it's kind of saying, hey, like, I know you guys expect the world from Thursday night, but like this won't be there, so just go in knowing that that's not going to happen. And it kind of like, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah,
like to kind of go in and not expect the universe. There'll be tons of surprises there, and obviously plenty of stuff we've never seen or heard of before. But now we know specifically what will not be there.
but at least we know Rivers Cuomo will be there.
That's right.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that time of year to grab your hammer busters and roasters because Borderlands 2 VR is almost here in all of its shooter-looter glory on PlayStation VR. Thanks to Borderlands 2 VR and PlayStation VR, this week we're giving away a code for Borderlands 2 VR and a Funko Pop Commando Claptrap action figure. All you have to do to enter is fill out the form in the link on the screen here or in the video description, where you'll also find official rules for the giveaway. Good luck! Beyond and welcome to a quick PlayStation VR Spotlight brought to you by PlayStation VR. I'm Max Scoville. This is Brian Altano.
Hello.
PlayStation VR is the thing we've both been big fans of since it first launched.
Yes, I hate reality and I love virtual reality.
Fancy hat you put on your head and do all sorts of stuff in your living room. I figured we could run out a couple of games that are out there that we've gotten some time with.
That's right.
Moss, let's start there.
Yes, Moss is an adorable, I don't want to call it a 3D platformer because it's sort of like a top-down, occasionally isometric puzzle adventure game. You control Moss, who is a adorable little mouse woman or a female mouse, and she's got a sword, and you send her on small adventures through these like sort of beautifully detailed, almost painterly dioramas.
That's something I love about this game is that it reminds me a lot of hyper-realistic children's picture books.
Yeah.
You know, it feels very much like it's got some like Brian Jacques Redwall in its DNA, and it's just, I don't know, it's cute, but it's got like some creepy elements too.
Definitely. There's
kind of a Rats and Nim vibe.
Yeah, and the cool thing about VR, obviously, is that like it plays with scale really well. And when you think of PSVR and VR in general, you probably think about, gritty first-person stuff in your face. You can see your hands and stuff like that. I really like third-person stuff in VR and seeing like this tiny little mouse because it looks like you are overlooking this small sort of cut corner of a forest where this tiny mouse is going on little adventures and climbing up and down, and you're interacting with various parts of the environment to effectively create platforms for Moss to move around. You find collectibles, there's enemies, there's secrets, and it's just a wonderful, like, sort of playable storybook, and I really, really dig it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that if you're looking at it on a flat screen, it doesn't necessarily convey what it's like in VR.
Yeah.
But it's still very cool. One game I'm a big fan of that I always am quick to recommend is Superhot, which was a game that launched not in VR first, and people were like, this is okay. And then the VR version came along, and people went, okay, hold on, this is really, really impressive. I think at a glance, this looks like a first-person shooter. It is in first person. There is shooting, there is combat, but it's much more of a puzzle game. It's kind of like if Matrix Bullet Time moved in relation to how you moved.
Yes.
So if somebody is shooting at you, you see their bullets coming at you, but if you start to duck, the bullet speeds up. So you've got to you can just basically stop, which is completely counterintuitive to any combat scenario, but everything freezes around you, and you can kind of like look around and be like, okay, what do I do next? And, this lets you do incredibly cool stuff like reach up and like grab stuff out of the air. Like if someone's throwing like a bottle at you, you can just catch it and throw it back. And it gets like very, very kind of like it's like a tactical ballet.
Yeah, it kind of gives you like sort of the like best moments of superhero movies where it feels like you're playing as someone like Quicksilver for a second. It's got a lot of that, which is like really different than pretty much anything else I've played in VR.
It's also just got like really awesome art direction where I feel like it could be, I don't know, maybe not for everybody if it was hyper violent, but it's got this weird sort of stylized, like almost like papercraft look to it, which is rad.
I would call it intentionally low poly, but it's not necessarily low poly. It's just like the texture work is very flat and bright and vibrant and very iconic. So yeah, check this one out.
But it's definitely one of those ones that when you get the hook for it, it gets its hooks in you. If you've got enough room to move around and do the whole Superhot thing, but you want something a little more fast paced, there is of course Creed: Rise to Glory, which is based on the growing Creed cinematic universe.
Titular hero Creed.
Yes, and it's the Creed from the Creed movies. And this is effectively, I don't know if I'll get in trouble for saying this. This is basically VR Punch-Out, which is great. It's full motion controls, which can get a bit exhausting, and you might break a lamp if you're not careful. Use those wrist straps. But I like this because it's making really good use of a license. I'm a big fan of the Rocky movies, so to get a giant boxing glove coming up and the Bill Conti music just blaring in your ears has that wonderful feel to it. This would be a good way to work up a sweat in VR.
Yeah, which by the way, there's like a significant amount of people that are doing now. That are basically treating it as a home workout regimen. So yeah, go for that. Maybe you'll look like Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, but
with those abs.
It is definitely weird to look down in VR and see like Michael B. Jordan's pecs. So if you want to experience that, that's what Creed's got going for it. But if you want, the quieter, chill experience, there's Moss. And if you want something a little bit more psychedelic and tactical, then there's, of course, Superhot.
Yeah.
Those are just a few of the PlayStation VR games we recommend. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments. And for everything VR, PlayStation, and otherwise, beyond and IGN.
Looking ahead, though, beyond the Game Awards,
Game Awards.
Obviously, we know what's coming at the tail end of this year, but I wanted to take a look ahead as we're getting into the end of December. But we're still in the beginning. As we get to the end of this year of what is coming to PS4 in 2019, because I feel like the beginning of next year is already crazy. Not necessarily in terms of all exclusives or anything, but just like there are so many releases already lined up for next year, some that got pushed from this year. So I thought we could just kind of go through month by month and talk about what you guys are excited for and just what I think some of the biggest games being announced are.
Sure.
So obviously January we have Kingdom Hearts 3, which you may have heard
my
of.
number one.
Yeah, you can't wait.
What is that?
You never stop talking about it.
Yeah, it's the thing is like there's a duck and a bear and a mouse, and then they're all in love, I think. And then there's a boy, and he's got some shorts, and then there's a lot going on.
There's always a lighthouse.
I know nothing about this game.
You pretty much nailed it. We've been getting sort of like a nonstop stream of trailers about Kingdom Hearts. We will be talking about Kingdom Hearts more in depth. I know a lot of people have asked me, "Hey, can you talk about it for more than a minute?" We'll want to, but I think we'll want to do that closer toward January when they've kind of wrapped
people have
up all
been
these
telling
trailers.
me that I'm a jerk for stopping you from, and you hand me your phone with a timer for 1 minute on it on the show that you program. It's a goof.
Yeah.
Like your titular hero, Goofy. God.
For anyone who just listens to the show, full transparency, the Kingdom Hearts minute only being a minute and them locking me into a minute is a total joke. I am programming the show. I could just sit here and talk about it for an hour.
You just not have me on the show.
Yeah, that would
sit at my desk.
The fans of the series are generally very humored, good-natured people, so this works out. I think we should do a spoiler cast.
Yes,
when this is done,
and I want to know everything you feel about the spoilers of Kingdom Hearts 3.
I want you to know that I'm very excited for you to play this game, and also that when you do record the spoiler cast, give me a heads up so I can take that day off.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah. It'll take probably about 6 hours to record.
Honestly, it looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
So many people are passionate about it. I'm willing to give it a shot and check it out. I don't know if it will make any sense to me, but I know somebody who can answer my questions, which is you.
Anytime.
So, yeah.
More than happy to. But also in January, that comes out the 29th of January in the US. It actually comes out the 25th in Japan. Also in January, toward the tail end, I believe 24th or 25th, is Resident Evil 2.
Oh my God, I cannot wait.
We just got a new round of previews and everything from it. We have a new preview on IGN, I believe, from Dan Crowd from our AU team.
And
it's that tyrant.
It's ridiculously positive. Everyone is saying that this is, like I had hoped, more and more like Resident Evil 4, which to me is the best Resident Evil game ever made. It's phenomenal. I talk about that all the time. I really can't wait for this game. I actually I was a big fan of Resident Evil, the original, and then 2 was I thought really good in the way it expanded a lot of that world and gave you this kind of bigger place that wasn't just this singular enclosed environment. But it was never really the definitive Resident Evil game. But seeing this and where this is going is I just absolutely cannot wait for it. The art direction is gorgeous in this game. It looks gory as hell.
Yeah.
A bunch of the costumes are really cool. They're old nods to basic classic Resident Evil costumes, and yeah, I cannot wait for this game.
Yeah, I've never really clicked with the series because I'm a coward, but I do have really fond memories of 2. My friend played it, and I would sit behind his couch and be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And there's I remember the tyrant coming out and following you around and just, or tyrant, this is his name or whatever. But I'm super down to jump into this. The fact that it's less tank controls and pairing in some of the action stuff from RE4.
Right.
I'm super down to play with this. It looks looks great. I like the setting a lot, where it's a raccoon city. It's just like a place, as opposed to like it being a house or it being like a strange European country or whatever.
Or a boat.
Yeah.
The new previews, I think, mentioned that there's going to be new areas to explore.
Yeah.
So it's clear that they're putting a lot of effort into this. And I think after seeing the success they had with RE7 in January in 2017, I think they'll probably see something similar with this one.
Yeah, I'm just really happy as a old school Resident Evil fan to see that this franchise is sort of like back on track.
Yeah.
In so many different ways.
And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that January 29th is the release of Kingdom Hearts 3. So look forward to Kingdom Hearts 3 in January. Anyway, moving on to February, I put Trials Rising on here. Probably a smaller scale game than a lot of games we're talking about, but there was a closed beta, I think, earlier this year.
People love Trials.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into one since maybe the original, but I jumped in for the beta of this one, and I had a blast with it.
Yeah.
I
did too.
There was one on 360 that I messed with a bunch that was a really good time.
And they dipped into, they had that crossover. That one wasn't great, right? With Blood Dragon.
Yeah.
Was it the Blood
Crossover.
Dragon,
It was just
or-
kind of. I feel like they've had an editor for ages. Like they've got like such a huge kind of active community that I feel like it's almost like teach a man to fish logic.
Yeah.
Where like they're like, hey, we've got a new Trials game, and people are like playing all these like crowdsourced levels or whatever. So, I mean, it's wonderful. It's like so toyetic and silly, and it's one of those games that does not really. It's like satisfying to watch, but it's like so much more fun to just get your hands on.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the uninitiated, it's effectively like a sort of singular level based
Physics puzzle.
puzzle racing game.
Yeah.
You're not really racing anything. You're getting to the end of each level.
You have to play as each motorcycle wheel independently,
basically.
which is
Yeah.
It's
basically
difficult.
Quap.
Yeah, it gets a
but
little
with,
quappy.
yeah.
And what's fun about it is that like tilting the stick even the slightest wrong way will cause your bicycle to do pirouettes and your character to basically explode.
Yeah.
And like the word says, you will go through a lot of trials. There's a lot of sort of like restarting and getting it perfect. And once you do, it's really satisfying. So yeah, I'm totally down for this game.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun. There is that element. There is a competitive element to it if you want, of getting the best time or the best scores and everything. And Barrett and I got into that for a bit.
I think it's funny because people look at it at a glance, it looks like an extreme sports or racing game, but
Yeah.
it's almost more of a puzzle game.
Yes, yeah,
Which is
absolutely.
funny. I know that this one does have co-op in tandem motorcycle mode.
Oh, I haven't.
Which they revealed at E3, and it looks hilarious. So
That's exciting.
I want to mess with that.
Yeah, I want to see how tough that is to do. Also in February is Anthem. I think probably the biggest release of that month. It's obviously we're seeing more and more of this game as we get closer to the end of the year. There's not, I think, a ton new to say right now about it, but I was curious how you two are feeling about Anthem because we haven't really talked about it.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my sort of safe way of saying we'll see if this gets to like Destiny and it feels like this thing that like I'll put it this way. Fran Mirabella, friend of the show, worked here for years, tweeted yesterday that his Airbnb is available for the Game Awards. And I said, Fran, why aren't you going? And he said, I had a choice between going to the Game Awards and seeing an award show that celebrates our medium and interfacing with fans and friends and colleagues, or doing a raid in Destiny. And I picked the raid in Destiny. And I was like, okay, that's probably a problem. So I don't want this to be, I hope this doesn't become one of those things that becomes so grindy, so appointment based, so like you have to be there or you miss this thing. And I hope it's something I can sort of play casually.
I feel like it almost definitely is going to be like Destiny. This is like, I'm sure a lot of very talented people are very hard. Like clearly people are working very hard on it, but it is totally like EA's answer to Destiny. Like that's what it is.
And there's Twi'leks apparently.
There are Twi'leks, and there are also Iron Man is in it, and so are the bad guys from Avatar, those big cats from the forest.
Yeah, so this game is just enough Star Warsy for me to really like it, but it's also EA's been weird with Star Wars.
So like of this
What?
deluge
Never.
of shared worlds experiences, shooters, the PvPvE kind of stuff we've been seeing, that's all very much like call up your friends and get in your space costumes and go fight the aliens or whatever. This is the one that looks the most fun to play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that sense of exploration is actually there, whereas I feel like in Destiny, it's always much more kind of like, here's an area that you're going to go to repeatedly.
Yeah.
Everything we've heard about or from people who've played like this sort of Iron Man jetpacky stuff is that it's awesome.
I assume you two haven't played it then
No.
at E3 or anything. So yeah, I played it for I think about a half hour at E3, and it was like you're Iron Man. You just feel like Iron Man, and I've wanted a good Iron Man game for forever, and this just kind of is that. And so I think like I'm gonna have a hell of a fun at least 6-7 hours with this game,
Right.
just flying around, trying crazy stunts and everything. But I have that same question of what the longevity of this game will be, and also my interest in that longevity.
Yeah,
Because I think if it is that appointment-based thing, I just don't have time in my schedule for
Me
that.
too.
It's not that sort of game that I love, but obviously people.
I like to play games at my own pace. I like to play single player, offline, story driven games for the most part. If there's enough of that here for me to do that, sure. But the first time we saw this game, it had that very like E3 scripted dialogue between friends thing, like flank left and motorcade to the right, up north, and like, yeah, sure, Big Roger, and like no one talks like
From
that.
downtown.
Yeah.
I do think it'll have quite a bit of that, but also knowing obviously BioWare's inclination towards stories so much, obviously in the past, my hope is there's some good balance of that.
Yeah, there's been so much sort of coming and going from BioWare that I'm like, and also the fact that they said you can't have sex with anybody in this is kind of a disappointment.
It's hard to do that with a jetpack, or is it?
We'll
even
find
better?
out in Anthem 2. Also that day, just to note, is the release of Anthem is releasing the same day as Metro Exodus, which was also the initial release plan for Days Gone before that got pushed to April. February 22nd was a little big. How do you both feel about what we've seen of Metro Exodus?
I mean, the Metro series is one that I think I like messed around with one of the remasters that came out. I think they were both on Prime for a second. I know that if you're if you're a patron of that other console, they're attached to Game Pass. So if you want to check them out on Xbox, they're out there.
I do that. I am a patron of that other console.
It's interesting because I think they've always been sort of unfairly compared to Fallout in the same way that like The Witcher was always sort of compared to Skyrim, and there's like this sort of smaller audience that was like, this is the cooler thing, look over here, and gradually people have kind of caught on and been like, oh, this is a much crunchier, more in-depth experience. And they're rooted. I really like this trend that we've been seeing out of Europe of games based on books, and based on paper materials rather than like movie franchises or TV franchises or whatever. And this is based on like a long-running series of, or not long-running, it's like three novels. But the writer of the novels then jumped over not really in the way The Witcher happened, but, in the same way that...
demanding money from them.
I mean, in the same way that like Mike Pondsmith is helping develop Cyberpunk, they got the guy who invented this universe to be like, how do we adapt this into a game and how do we get this to feel right?
Right.
And it's effectively sort of a Russian take on the Fallout issue of like, hey, there was a nuclear war. What is it? It's sort of post World War II. You're in tunnels and stuff. There's mutants out there. Go fight them.
Yeah.
But this one is way more depressing. And
we'll see, especially compared to like the bright, fun, vibrantness of Anthem on the same day. I'm wondering how those two will do. And also I know that Ryan McCaffrey saw it at E3 this year and he wasn't too hot on it.
Really?
So I've heard good things about the first two Metro games, but we'll see if this can live up to them when it's fully released. Moving on to March, Devil May Cry 5 is probably one of the biggest releases. I haven't really played the Devil May Cry series. That's kind of been a blind spot in my history.
I haven't since 1 and 2.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a very long time ago. I got into them because they are really fun arcadey sort of action games, and they were scratching an itch that I was looking for at the time. But I think the train's kind of left the station for me with this franchise. I'm glad people are excited for it. I personally find it to be like sort of garish and not, I wouldn't say obnoxious. I don't find this appealing at all. If I want to play like an action game, I'll go elsewhere, which sucks because there's a lot of really cool stuff going on here. I wish it was like a little more rooted in horror. It's got like sort of one foot there. And then it's got a lot of like Final Fantasy leather going on too. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of really cool shit happening here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like maybe I will give this a shot, and just watching this right now is kind of turning me around on it. So.
I know that the Ninja Theory DMC reboot was like a very divisive topic. I always thought that much like Kratos, like Dante could kind of use a makeover, and it seems almost weird that they're like going back and switching that. I know that a whole bunch of angry dudes in trench coats are, taking their rings off so they can type faster, angry comments. But
when he did get a makeover, a lot of people weren't crazy about that.
And that's the only one I've ever played, and I enjoyed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
awesome.
I actually like that one a lot.
Yeah, I think that was the problem there was that they were taking something familiar and sort of bastardizing it in its own way. But at the same time, this looks gorgeous.
Yes.
It's got that weird Final Fantasy trench coats and jewelry kind of aesthetic, which I'm like, this was cool as hell in 2001.
Yeah.
It's 2018,
where everything looks a little wet.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't love that description,
Yeah.
but it's true. Of course, if you love the trench coats from that game, you can buy them with the game's special edition. I think they're like thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's like $3,000.
Yeah, it's some crazy. So
Give those guys the Trigun license.
yeah, that'd be interesting. Also in March is the Division 2 coming out. I was surprised at how big that was. That was announced in this like crazy, I think either day or week, where they also announced Black Ops 4, Smash Brothers Ultimate, like all these things, and it was only second to I think Smash Bros in the audience interest.
Yeah.
For us, I kind of dropped out early on the Division 1.
I did too, but I did play it for a while.
And I've heard they've kept with it a lot. And really
Yeah,
revitalized it.
it's weird to like talk about a game like that because like I did the same thing as you, Jonathan. I played a ton of it and then I just stopped. And I have friends that like kept going, or some that even still play it, right? And like that's awesome. I don't really know what to say about the new one, other than I will probably do the same thing again. I'll play it for a little while, I'll get into it, and then I'll stop playing it. And I like with a game that doesn't have a defined ending, really, then like I don't really know how to.
I mean,
like how do you review that?
we're seeing this thing where if you play a game at launch nowadays, it often sucks. Like, and that's we're seeing that with Red Dead Online, with Fallout 76. We're seeing it with Destiny. We're seeing it with Overwatch. We saw it with just all these things. When you play these online experiences at launch, they're not done yet. And
But then there's also that thing where like you're late to the party and everybody's got all the cool shit.
So
and you
when's
don't.
the best time to play it?
I don't know. It kind of blows.
I mean, the issue, like I played, Division when it first dropped, and it was all right. My whole issue with the series is like, it's rooted in this very grounded, like Tom Clancy down to earth thing, but it still has like straight RPG mechanics.
Yeah.
So you'll be like, okay, I got my gun. I shot this dude 27 times in the head, and I took that much life off, and it's like, oh, he's level 17, and he's wearing like a very tough hoodie.
Yeah.
Everyone's wearing just hoodies and jeans. So I'm like,
He has a purple scarf.
if he was
which
wearing
is
like SWAT
50.
gear, I'd be like, okay, I can't kill him with gunshots. But instead, it's just like everyone's just dressed like in winter clothes or whatever. I don't know. It's obviously we're sort of outliers on this. Like Ghost Recon Wildlands was.
One of the most popular games.
Yeah.
Is that this year?
That was, I want to say last year.
What year is it right now? I keep saying I think
This is 2018.
2018 has been 27 months long.
Yeah.
So, but no, I mean, like Ghost Recon Wildlands was an incredibly like runaway seller, and we're also like, oh, they added Predator. That's nice, and tons of people are just like,
Oh yeah, that's right. They put Predator in there.
oh yeah, trucks and shit.
Yeah, so I think we'll definitely see it be successful. I'm curious to jump back into that. I mostly jumped into the first game because it was New York and I could go to my apartment as a safe house.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think my old apartment was a pizza place, which is not canonical, but I wish it was.
Yeah.
I mean,
one day.
once again, this is the second iteration of a video game franchise, which is almost always bodes well.
Yes,
for them to kind of go in and be like, "What did we do wrong last time? Let's go in there and upgrade and fix that and expand that."
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, yeah. See also Destiny 2, Watch Dogs 2, Uncharted 2.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And those that developer within Ubisoft is also doing the Avatar game, so it'll be interesting to see what this teaches us.
Yeah, I'm
about
excited for this game to come out so that their Avatar game can come out and I can talk about that.
Perfect. We'll look forward to that in 4 years.
Let me know so I can take that day off.
Also, March is the season of MLB The Show, so look forward to us having Ryan McCaffrey on the show when MLB The Show comes
Also,
out.
by the way,
Taking
let
that
me
week
know.
off,
That is also Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is coming
Yes.
out that month from Software's newest franchise.
Oh my
which,
god, I can't wait for this game.
I've
Okay.
seen Chloe and Brendan Graber from our team Chloe Rad play this game, and one, they're much better at these games than I am, so it's rad to watch. But
Here's the thing, like gun to head, if you say, do you want to play Devil May Cry or do you want to play this as a like crazy over the top third person action game, I want to play this. Like way more. This has a lot of the DNA of Bloodborne and the Souls games that I love. Plus the setting is totally different, completely gorgeous. I love that they're just trying their hand at a effectively brand new IP, new world. Neo is one of my favorite games on PS4. I loved that game. We called it Samurai Bloodborne. We should have maybe saved that descriptor for this.
Yeah.
And I thought it was fantastic. I can't wait to play that again. I think they're going to go in really weird directions with some of the like creatures and boss fights in this game. That feeling you get in a Souls game or Bloodborne where you turn the corner and you're like, what the is that? It's going to kill me. I think that's going to happen here a lot. I also think this game's going to get delayed.
I'm really curious about how this game comes out because it is FromSoft, who have their reputation of making like balls hard, unforgiving games, but it's being published by Activision, who are like kind of, they make games for the widest possible audience. Like they are the biggest, are they second biggest publisher?
well, Activision Blizzard together as a whole, I think.
Yeah. No, it's crazy, and obviously they're all about kind of like those little tiny systems that make things have that feedback loop and make things accessible. So will this be will this be the hardest Activision game or the easiest FromSoft game, basically?
Yeah, it's an interesting outlier in their portfolio, and I'm curious if we're going to see any other games like this from them. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I usually with FromSoft games tend to get into them for a little bit, and then they get too hard for me, and I walk out. So I am curious of what the difficulty level for this one will be. Moving on to April, just want to briefly mention Shovel Knight King of Cards, the final expansion, as well as Shovel Knight Showdown. Basically, the end of Shovel Knight. It is finally coming to an end. All the promised content they had from when the game was first sort of kickstarted.
Yeah, I want to point out something real quick. Max and I have been through this before. If you're about to go on Kickstarter, rein it in.
Yeah.
Like, because anything you say that you're going to do, you're going to have to do. And Yacht Club has been doing it, like props to them. But everything they promised, they've had to deliver like 7 years later, it feels like.
It's crazy, yeah.
So I'm really excited to see this game come out, to finish Shovel Knight, because it's a fantastic game. A great series, and they just keep adding stuff to it. But also because Yacht Club about a year or two ago tweeted, hey, like, what should we make next?
Yeah.
Do you want to see us do like a side-scrolling Zelda 2 style game, or like a top-down game, or like a Metroidvania? And everybody was like, Metroidvania. So like this Shovel Knight's awesome. It's one of the greatest platforming games of all time. I'm excited to see that end because I want to see what they can do next.
Yes, yeah. I'm very curious to see their future too. I'm sure it's going to be a great final campaign and a great send-off, but yeah, I can't wait to see what else they do. Also in April, as we mentioned before, it was delayed from February, but Days Gone will finally be coming out.
Yep.
I think we've talked a bit about the show, about this game on the show a lot before, and right now I think it's a tepid, like, intrigue. Like, you're interested in it, but right now, I think what we've seen of it, we've seen so much that feels familiar to us.
I feel like they've shown us too much.
Yeah.
Like
Arthur Morgan's in it. My two big questions are what makes this different than other zombie undead freaker games, and what makes this different than other open world games, right?
Yeah.
I think those two things working in harmony will truly define what this game is, whether or not it's a hit, whether or not it becomes a franchise. Because we have open world games, right? Like there's like 6 that came out in the last month. There's tons of them constantly. We just got Just Cause like literally today, right? So I want to see what makes this game so different. And it's also like people keep bringing up The Last of Us 2. I don't think we're seeing that next year. But this game as a PlayStation exclusive with zombies and a sort of like gruff protagonist with a beard gets, sort of sometimes deservedly, undeservedly compared to that. So I want to see what separates it from all those things. And also I'm really interested in the setting. I think like the Pacific Northwest is like a beautiful place. Like one of my favorite days in my entire career was Max and I flew to Seattle to go to PAX, and we got there early, and the two of us and former IGN employee Anthony Gallegos went fishing.
Oh.
And it was just like a lake, and
we were there for like 5 hours. We caught one small fish.
One small shitty fish, but it was a great day. We drank some brew dogs.
We even did. We were just sitting on a dock like weirdos.
We were completely sober.
We had one fishing rod between all of us.
Yeah. So maybe you can do that.
I'm sure the game will just be exactly like that.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I just want to catch one fish.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I'm curious. Yeah, I think I get a sense of what this game is within like playing it for an hour or two. I want to know what playing this for 10, 12 hours looks like.
Yeah.
It really is that big of a world. But Ben, obviously they have a proven pedigree, so I have hope that this will be still a fun experience. There are question marks coming for PlayStation of when things like Concrete Genie and Dreams and a couple of VR titles like Everybody's Golf VR are going to release. They've sort of talked about looking forward to those in the same window as Days Gone, so we'll see if any of those come out. And obviously things like Medieval, I assume that's Halloween next year. But who knows when we get those games? Obviously, there's a lot more to find out about for next year.
Yep.
But that just wraps up a little bit of what we're excited to play in PS4 in the beginning of 2019. Already a lot of games, already a lot of busy days in the office that we'll have. That's going to make it pretty much it for this show this week. I did, before we leave, want to remind everyone that if you are in the San Francisco Bay Area, we are doing Beyond Live on December 10th in San Francisco. All of the details and everything are on IGN, on my Twitter. There's an Eventbrite page. You have to sign up if you want to come to the event. Be sure to come. We're going to be doing a live episode of Beyond.
Or you have to give us $5.
I'll take $5.
What?
True.
It's a free. It's a free show.
It's free. Why would you say that to them?
If they don't sign up, then they have to pay us $5.
Finish
Are
line.
you just going to stand at the door?
You confuse it. You muddle it.
It's going to be free.
No $5.
You do that all the time.
No, the $5 you keep in your pocket.
You've got hair on your head the entire episode.
Oh.
Is it yours?
No.
It's not
Cobweb
mine.
or
I can't
something.
grow hair that long.
It's from the dice.
Oh, you know what it is? It's from that Star Wars jacket I wore before. It's a wolf's hair from Hoth.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, so Beyond Live is happening December 10th. Doors open at 5:30. The show is at 6. That'll be that week's episode. So if you can't make it to that event, obviously you can look forward to the show when it airs normally on IGN and YouTube and podcast services. Other than that, where can people find you online, Max, when you're not here?
I'm on Twitter, Max Scoville. It's Max Scoville on all the things. You can find them all on there on the internet.
And Brian?
I'm at Agent Bizzle, and you can go find me there. And I'm also doing other stuff, doing some shows here and there. And see us at the Game Awards. Come to our fan fest and meet and greet and all that.
Yes,
fun
we
stuff.
also have Fan Fest. If you're listening this week, Friday in LA.
Yes.
It's taking place, I think, around also 5:30 or 6 p.m. that starts. So yeah, if you're in the LA area, you can find details on our Twitters, on IGN.com, everything. All the details are there.
Busy ass December.
Yeah.
It won't let this year end.
No, never. It'll just get right into all these games.
2018 Part 2. You're getting that animal hair everywhere.
Year of the Dice. Thank you so much for watching. Beyond.